Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello and welcome. I am Taylor. Today's video is going to be all about bread. Some of you have asked me to share like all of my favorite bread recipes in one video. So today I'm going to be sharing 3 of our family favorite bread recipes with you. The first one I'm starting off with is my favorite crusty Italian bread. Today I am making my favorite crusty Italian bread recipe. I'm starting off with 1 1/3 cups of warm water. You just want it to be warm, not super hot. And then I'm going to add in 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast. I just use active dry yeast. I buy it in a big bag, but you could just buy it in the little packages if that's what you want to do. But I buy the big bag and then I just store it in the freezer, and I swear it like never goes bad. And I've had this bag forever and it still works great every time. So 2 1/4 teaspoons of that. And then I'm going to do a tablespoon of brown sugar. And I'm going to mix that all around and then just let it sit for 5 to 10 minutes so that it can start to get nice and bubbled up and active. Okay, this has foamed up a bunch. So now I'm going to add my olive oil, half of my flour, and my salt. So I'm going to do 1 1/2 teaspoons of olive oil, 2 cups of the flour, and I like to use bread flour, but it's not necessary. You can just use all-purpose. I just like the texture of the bread better when you use a bread flour. It has more gluten in it, and that's just what I prefer. And then the salt is going to be 1 1/2 teaspoons. I'll get that mixed around, and then I'll get my dough hook on here and mix it around some more and slowly add in up to another 2 cups of flour. Sometimes I only get about 1 cup to 1.5 cups in. It just depends. You just kind of have to watch the dough. It'll start to pull away from the sides. And once you get all the flour in that you want, I'm going to knead it for probably about 3 minutes with the dough hook. Okay, this is done. As you can see, it like pretty much cleaned the entire bowl. I'm going to add just a little bit more olive oil in the bottom and just kind of roll the ball around in that. And then I'm going to cover this and let it rise for 30 minutes. Okay, it's been 30 minutes. As you can see, the dough has doubled. I'm going to punch it down, take it out, and divide it into 2 balls. And then you just kind of have to watch and see how I roll it out. I'll roll it out flat into a rectangle and then roll it up. It's really hard to like verbally explain it. It's easier if I just show you. And then I'm going to put them on my baking sheet. I've got my little silicone mat on there. And I'm going to let these rise for about another hour until they are doubled in size. Okay, it's been about an hour. I have preheated my oven to 375, and in this little bowl I've mixed together 1 egg with about a tablespoon of water. It's a little egg wash. I'm going to brush that on the loaves, and then I'm going to make a slit down the center, and then these are going to bake for 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm also going to include a cake pan with some water in it because that helps give it a nice crusty crust. Here is what mine look like after 28 minutes of baking. I'm just going to let them cool completely, and then we'll slice it, have it with dinner. I like to serve these with like all kinds of stuff, soups. I like to slice it up and put some garlic butter on it and toast it and make like homemade garlic bread. I even have sliced up like one of the loaves, since usually we only need 1 loaf for dinner. I'll slice up the other loaf, stick it in the freezer, and then I have like my own pre-made garlic bread, and I'll just butter it and throw it in the toaster oven when we're ready to eat it for like spaghetti night or whatever. So that is one of our favorite breads. Next up, I'm sharing this recipe for like homemade sub rolls. The original recipe is called like homemade Subway bread, and it's super soft and perfect for any kind of sub sandwiches, Philly cheesesteaks, anything like that. So I've started off by adding 1.5 tablespoons of active dry yeast in here and 1 tablespoon of sugar. And to it, I'm going to add 1 cup of warm water, and then just mix that around and let it sit for about 5 minutes till it gets bubbly, and then we will move on. Okay, as you can see, this has like bubbled up quite a bit, nice and foamy. That's how we know that our yeast is still good, it's still active. So now I'm going to add in 4 tablespoons of olive oil, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and then I'm going to start with 1 cup of flour, adding a little bit at a time until I get up to between 2.5 and 3.5 cups of flour. So I got about 2.5 cups of flour in there until I thought it was good enough. It was pulling away from the sides. It's still, you want it to be slightly sticky, but it was pulling away from the sides. It says pull away from the sides of the bowl, but stick slightly to the bottom of the bowl. So it's slightly tacky. It's good to go. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in my bowl and kind of coat this with olive oil. The recipe doesn't say to do this, but I do this with like every other bread recipe. So that's what I like to do. And then I'm going to cover this with a kitchen towel and let it sit and rise for 30 minutes. Okay, it has been 30 minutes. This dough has doubled in size. So I'm going to take it out, divide it into 4 equal pieces, and then those 4 pieces I'm going to roll into flat rectangles, and then I will roll it up. It's kind of hard to explain. You'll see me do it. And then they're going to lay on a baking sheet for another hour to rise again. Okay, it's been an hour. About 15-20 minutes ago I preheated my oven to 350, so this is what these are looking like. I'm going to go ahead and put them in the oven and bake them for 25 minutes. Okay, bread just came out of the oven. I've got a little bit of butter. I'm gonna brush these with the butter. You don't even have to melt it because the loaves are so warm that it'll just kind of melt it. And then I'm gonna cover these with the towel and just let them cool completely until dinner later. As I said, this bread is like the perfect sub bread to make at home. I've tried a couple different recipes for like sub bread, and this one is by far our favorite. It's super soft on the inside, and this night we actually had it for meatball subs. And finally, the last recipe I'm sharing with you is for our favorite homemade sandwich bread. And this recipe makes 2 loaves. So I've started off by measuring out 1 cup of water and 1 cup of milk, and I want it to be warm water and warm milk. So what I do is I just take regular like room temp, like tap water, get a cup of it and a cup of milk, and I put them in here and I put it in the microwave for about 45 seconds until it's warm. I find that 45 seconds is the perfect time, so it's just like warm to the touch but not hot because we don't want it to be too hot and kill our yeast. So I'm going to add that into my bowl. And then I'm going to add in half a cup of sugar. And this is just regular sugar. People always ask me if this is brown sugar. If I say sugar and it looks kind of tan, it's because of the brand that I buy. It's the Zolka brand, and it's not like bleached. So it's just kind of tannish looking. And then I'm going to do 1.5 tablespoons of active dry yeast. I'm going to stir that around a little bit and then let it sit and proof for 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, this has foamed up a bit, and now I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of vegetable oil. And then I'm going to add in 2 cups of my flour. Again, I'm using bread flour, but you can use all-purpose flour. And then I'm going to also add in 1.5 teaspoons of salt. I'll get my dough hook on here and start getting it mixed around. And then I will continue to slowly add in more flour up to, what is it, 6.5 cups. Somewhere between 5.5 and 6.5 cups. Sometimes I'm at that lower end of 5.5. It just depends. You have to like watch it and just see how it's coming together. You don't want to add too much and it be super dry. You don't want to add too little and it be super sticky. The first couple of times I made this, I probably added too much flour, and the bread still turned out, it was just like really dense. So you won't completely screw it up if you add too much. You just gotta keep practicing making it. Okay, I've gotten just right at 5.5 cups of flour in here. It's looking good. It's like pulled away from the sides almost completely, and it's just slightly sticky, not too sticky. The amount of flour you can add varies every time you make it. It like is dependent on like the humidity in the air. So sometimes you might need to add more, sometimes you might need to add less. It's just usually always in about that 5.5 to 6.5 cups range. But now that it is all in there as much as I think it needs, I'm going to continue to knead it for about 5 minutes. And I just have the mixer on 2 when you make bread. That's for all the bread that I make. I think the manual for the KitchenAid says for kneading dough, it needs to be on the 2nd speed. So I will let it do its thing for about 5 minutes. Okay, now just like with the other recipes I shared, I'm going to take this ball of dough out and oil it and get the ball like all nice and oiled. Cover it with a towel, and then this one is going to rise for an hour. Okay, it's been an hour and my dough has definitely doubled. I'm going to punch it down, remove it, get it out on my cutting board. Gonna knead it a few times and then form it into a ball and divide it into 2 balls. And then just like with the other bread recipes, I will roll it out into a rectangle and then roll it up. Again, it's easier if I show you. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to grease my loaf pans. I've got 2 here. I'm going to grease them very well so that the bread doesn't stick, and the rolled up loaves will go in the bread pans, and I'll cover them and let them rise again for 30 minutes to an hour until the dough has risen like an inch over the sides. Okay, it's been about 45 minutes. I preheated my oven to 350 about 10 minutes ago, and as you can see, the bread has risen. It's about an inch over the edge of the pan, and I have melted about a tablespoon of butter. I'm going to brush that on here and then bake these for 30 minutes. Okay, bread just came out of the oven. I'm going to let it rest in the pan for 5 minutes, and then I will remove it and let it cool completely before slicing. Here's what the finished bread looks like. I went ahead and sliced 2 pieces. It's cooled completely, and this bread is really soft. Look at it. Super soft, and it's so good. We will use this for grilled cheese probably tomorrow for dinner, but it's great for sandwiches. It's just great to eat by itself with some butter too. I absolutely love this sandwich bread recipe. And then usually I'll take this one and wrap it up really tightly with some plastic wrap and stick it in the freezer, because I don't usually eat it before it'll go bad, since it makes 2, as I said. So that is what I do with that. And then to thaw it, I just set it on the counter, still wrapped in plastic wrap the day that I want it, and just let it thaw completely. But that is our favorite sandwich bread recipe. And that is going to do it for this video. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing our 3 favorite family bread recipes. I make these all the time, so I think being able to link this video for you guys will be super helpful, and then you guys can just see all the breads that I make all the time. But that is going to do it. As I said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!